CMoore, what's going on? Guys, it is April Wednesday? No, Tuesday the 27th. My name is Everett Delorme. I am joined today by the one, the only Mr. CMoore. If you've ever been to Kits Beach, you've seen him there. If you've ever been to the Vancouver Open, you've definitely heard him there. He is one of the owners and one of the head coaches of the Sideout Beach Volleyball Club. If you want to give a little there, yeah, that's it. What I call the best beach volleyball club in Canada. You may have heard of a couple of girls named the McNamara's who came from that club, and then just a plethora of other talent. We can also touch on a little bit of NCAA ball at the end too. I know a few of your players have been former players have been playing in the NCAA. But first and foremost, how are you? It's been a while since I've seen you. I miss Kits Beach. I miss Vancouver. I'm currently in the most locked down city in the world right now, and it sucks.
I'm doing great. I'm a high school teacher in my regular life, so that's a bit crazy all the time right now, especially right now. But Vancouver's doing good. I feel like our COVID numbers, if we should talk about that, are stabilizing. We've done a good job. I now have my vaccine as a teacher. I got it on Friday, so I'm feeling invincible. I'm going to hop on public transit and lick the handrails again.
Great.
I'm ready to rock. No one can stop me now. Nope, just kidding. I have to wait my 2 weeks and get another dose, but I'm better than I was a week ago. So doing well though. Thanks for asking. Thanks for having me.
Good, dude. I'm stoked. We're going to talk a little bit of beach volleyball today. We're going to talk about
Perfect.
the Cancun bubble going on. We have seen two of the three events go down. Country quota happened today with the Americans and the Brazilians. Big shout out to friend of the show, Kame Schalk, who qualified this time around, qualified for the first turn, or got through the country quota for the first tournament, then got through then got knocked out in country quota for the second tournament. And now he's back in for number 3. So good to see a guy who we've seen at the Vancouver Open. Good old
Cam.
Good old Canadian boy competing down for the U.S. now for reasons. I mean, we don't really need to get into that. If you want to get into it, you can go check out my last podcast with him. But yeah, CMoore, let's kind of jump into it. What are some of your initial thoughts and like opening statements here about the Cancun bubble so far?
Well, first off, I mean, it's been providing me with like a little bit of like solace and things to look forward to. I mean, the visuals have been fairly incredible. Putting the courts right on the beach, having the cameras looking out in the ocean. Whoever the marketing strategic person from Cancun like nailed that. I know when they normally do tournaments in some of these places, like the courts are like behind the hotels, in the parking lots because their hotels are full and they want the beach access to the people that have paid, $3,000 a week to be there, but they don't have that problem this year. So it's actually pretty spectacular. So I've been loving that. I thought the volleyball from some of the teams was very high level. I thought the volleyball from some of the teams was questionable and not at their standards. But I've been really enjoying it, and yeah.
I do believe the conditions have been tough to deal with. They've been very Kits Beach-esque conditions. A lot of side wind, a lot of wind. You're right on the ocean there. I do know that beach well. I don't know if you listened to our preview episode that I did with Louis Lett and Greg from the Beach Volley Vlog. I actually went and did spring break there in 2010 as an 18-year-old. So
amazing.
I have played beach volleyball on that beach, and I can confirm that it was windy. Although my the amount of sodas, let's say, I had might have contributed to that.
Yep.
More for less was definitely in effect.
More for less was operating.
Absolutely, especially at the all-inclusive that is the Oasis Cancun. But you're right. That visual of having just like the Cancun sign behind the main court with the ocean in the background is great. You can kind of tell how windy it is by how much the waves are crashing, and we've yet to see a still ocean yet. So it just kind of gives you an indication of how gnarly the some of the conditions have been. But still, you're right. We've seen some fantastic volleyball from some teams. I'm going to start it off with the one team that has been absolutely dominant so far, and that has been the Beach Volley Vikings. We're going to head over to Instagram real quick to look at it. It has been 597 days since the Beach Volley Vikings, Mole, and Sorum have lost a match.
Yeah, I saw that stat the other day. That's absolutely insane, and it just shows how dominant they are. And I've been talking to people, and we have our fantasy league that we're doing right now, and we have a group chat on that. And their ability to just be 5% better than the other team all the time is crazy. I feel like, they'll start a game, and if the other team is leveled up or playing really well, they just find that extra piece and they find that extra gear. And I hypothesized yesterday in the chat that I feel like from what I've watched, I'm actually going to dive into the numbers on this, but I haven't done it yet. I think their points percentage coming out from a technical timeout, those like 3-4 points after technical timeout, I would say it's got to be insane. I mean, the micro adjustments they make on the fly, they were down 12-9 to Cutter, and they all of a sudden it was 12-12 coming out like after the technical. It was like, block error by them, and their ability to do that is insane. And I thought watching them play, I feel like, this is going to sound crazy for somebody to say, I do feel like though that there was a few cracks this week that showed up from some teams. I do think that a serving, if you have a dynamic enough blocker, a serving strategy of going at Anders Mole might be the way to do it. I don't know if there's a lot of teams that can match the physicality of the net or the dynamicness of the net, but if you can do that, I think there's an option there. I just think Christian Storm's ability to intentionally mishit volleyballs makes him impossible to dig. Right. And a mole setting is so good. And I feel like it harkens back a little bit to like 2009 when the world kind of figured out maybe we should just serve Phil instead of Todd. And Andy will hit the gnarliest balls of the weekend, but he's also has less shots, will make more errors, and probably get blocked more than Christian Sorum. So I know that's changed. My opinion on that has changed in the last couple of years, as I think Christian Sorum's side-out game has just continued to evolve into like elite status. And he's early 20s, and he's approaching like best of all time I've ever seen side-out. As automatic as peak Todd or peak Bruno.
Absolutely. But the thing is that what he had, like, he's much more physical than either of those players. Like both Todd and Bruno have always been, and Todd was, and Bruno still is, just surgical in terms of their precision. But man, like Christian Sorum, he pegs balls sometimes, and there's just sometimes like he's just going to overpower you, which is so scary that they've got two guys that can overpower you like that. They did lose 2 sets this tournament, so that's kind of notable. Well, one of them, surprisingly, in their first match to Cardenas and Espinoza of Mexico, they beat them in the first set 21-12, and then lost the second set 21-18. Pulling it out 15-9 in the ninth, and then didn't lose another set until the quarterfinals in that epic battle against Cantor and Loziak. And I mean, Cantor and Loziak didn't even make it out of the pool in the first tournament. They're coming out of the qualifier, and here they are going toe to toe with Mole and Sorum.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm a huge fan of Loziak. I mean, I think a lot of people are. I think he's the most technical player on tour. And I think that he, so he's not too worried. He can handle some of that heat. I think where, again, they pushed, but where they ended up struggling in the end was Christian Sorum hits intentional floomers. Like when you watch in slow motion him hit balls, his snap is never at the back of the ball. It's always one side or the other, or like flat. There's almost rarely hits a ball with true topspin. And I think that actually, because there's a few balls that I would say that normally if you gave, Loziak 1,000 shots, he'd dig a lot more than he did, kind of at the end that got away from him. But really good battle, and I expect more from Cantor Loziak going forward. I think that they're, when healthy, I still think that they're a top 8 team in the world for sure.
So when you mean these like intentional mishits by Sorum, are you talking about like he's hitting it like a paintbrush so that he's just barely hitting it and it's falling into the court, or if he's chiseeing for hams? Like what do you mean by that?
No, I think if you think about it, if you think about like a regular spike approach and a regular contact on a ball, you think about hitting that ball true with like really good topspin, whereas his balls will have some will have like tons of topspin, so it's going to be in that channel, and some will have not very much topspin or no topspin. And then he also does he'll hit a ball 95% with a little bit off center. So instead of having just topspin, has a little bit of side spin. And when he does that, it's always moving away from the defender. So he comes in, he's facing you right in the chest. You're like, yeah, I got this one. And it like dives a meter to your right. Or it goes the other way, it goes a meter to your left. And it just makes it like really, really hard to hit. And I remember talking to Josh Binstock one time about this, and he said that, the first point he ever played against them, I think it was him and Dan in San Jose, I think. And he said that, the first ball is a dead foomer. And he's like, how he foomed that one? Like, that's hilarious. Like, good shot by him. And then the second one was a foomer. And then he's like, wait, is he doing that on purpose? And then he backed up and he got one snapped in front of him. So it's like, I think it might be, to be honest, I think it's going to be soon the evolution of beach volleyball. I mean, guys are getting too good at reading, too good at blocking, that if you're trying to contact a ball like you're supposed to, you're going to get blocked or you're going to get dug. And if you think about pitching in baseball, at a certain point, no matter how hard you throw the ball, if you throw it right down the middle, someone's going to hit it out of the park on you. But if you can, if your fastball can look like a changeup, or your fastball can be a slider, or they all kind of look the same, now all of a sudden it's really hard. So if Christian Storm's coming in every time, same angle or similar angle every time, and one time he hits just off center to the right, and one time he hits just off center to the left, and one time he fooms it. Like, now playing defense is adventure time, especially when the ball's traveling as hard as you can hit it. Because like you said, he's a physical player.
The fact that he is going back there, and like, it's one thing for a baseball pitcher to do it because you have the time to prep. You're just there. You're on your own clock. More or less, and you have the time to set your hands up to be able to throw the slider, throw the curve, throw the straight fastball, however you want. But the fact that Christian Sorum is able to do this on the go, like on the fly, while being set a ball, and I mean, I know Dana Cook broke this down one time for me, and she goes, hardest thing to do in sport is to hit a baseball. Second hardest thing to do in sport is to hit a volleyball, just because of how many variables are going on. That is the pass good? Is the set good? Are you getting to the ball? Like, there's so many variables for you to be able to hit that ball positively. And I mean, I think you alluded to earlier of how good of a setter Anders Mole is, and I mean, he truly is that upgraded version of Phil, right? It's like, let's take Phil at his prime, and we're just going to add way more volleyball experience to him, because everyone knows the story of how Phil Dawser like showed up to college and had never really played volleyball before, and started playing club volleyball, and that's how he got into it. So he's kind of a late bloomer into the sport, whereas like Anders Mole is that, but with 10 years experience already, and he's in his early 20s. It's absolutely disgusting to watch what they can do on the court. They're just thumping teams. I was wrong. They did lose 3 sets in this tournament. They lost in the semifinals, a set in the semifinals to Alisson and Alvaro Fijo, but they also opened that match with a 21-8 absolute domination of the top of that Brazilian team.
Yeah, I mean, I think that again, we talked about this in the chat too, but score effects are insane and are a real thing and are part of every professional sport. And it's one thing for us to say, like, we just drubbed a team, or we're up big, or we won a first set big, and it's one thing to understand that we need, they're going to be better and we got to come out strong. But it's so hard to do, and NBA players can't do it, NHL players can't do it, MLB players can't do it. When you're leading or when you're up a set, you feel better. They feel like they need to work harder to come back, and you have score effects. You have the team that's behind plays better than the team that's ahead, and you have to be much better for that to be a thing. So them winning in a drubbing and losing the next set is not necessarily uncommon, and I feel like if they would have won that first set 21-19, they might not have dropped the second set, because they did kind of come out like fine. And Alisson, I think, like 8 points into that first one, was like, we're gonna try set 2, because he kind of already, he whacked a couple balls dead center in the block that like he never hits. Like, he's too good to hit that ball. But one thing that Anders Mole has added this tournament, which I was really impressed with, because it sounds weird to say, improving his blocking, is Anders Mole in this tournament for the first time really started going to the well of independently blocking with 2 different arms. Anders Mole is exceptional at getting 2 hands on all the balls, which makes blocking hits for him. He gets some thunderous blocks. He does an amazing job. He can contort his body. He's way up there, can do that. But adding the stress of an attacker, if Anders can continue to do what he's doing of now making his hands move independently, hanging a hand in the line to swat that line over while leaving the hand in the angle to block your big hit, adds an extra level of stress when you can't think yourself, I see one hand, right? That means the other hand is there too. Nope. The other hand is somewhere else operating independently. And that's going to make things even more difficult for attackers trying to get around Anders Mole as he keeps refining that.
I find that one thing that Norway just does really well is that they're always pretty much like always in system in a way that they always know what they're doing. They always have a level head, and they always have, an opposite reaction to whatever the other team is doing. And that, when they do get caught off guard, another team does come back and win the set, that they just kind of like calmly like brush it off and move on. I very, very rarely see them rattled.
Yeah, totally agree. They're super calm. I actually have been impressed with their, they haven't lost in, like you said, like almost 2 years. So it's pretty easy to be like, we're fine. But they're super calm. They can have many points go the other way, and they just like roll back into it. And their embrace, Christian Sorum's, obviously playing with Anders for so long and then being friends is helpful. But Christian Sorum's ability to just let Anders be Anders and him be himself. It's a very interesting dynamic. They weirdly enough, they don't intentionally play a lot of like team defense, in the sense of Anders is up there trying to block every single ball. Like he is not like, what is my blocking strategy? My blocking strategy is I'm going to block everything. And then Christian Storm's defensive strategy is I'm going to go try to dig stuff. So it's a very different dynamic. I remember when I was first learning beach volleyball and watching beach volleyball, there was all these conversations about the funnel and don't take balls away from diggers and like all these things. But people hit the ball too hard in the World Tour now. I think the stats are if a ball gets hit past a blocker, it's about 10% of the time that you're going to make a dig, get a set, and side that ball out.
Dang.
If a ball's hit past with pace. So that means that as a blocker, you could get two-old 17 times out of 20. But if you made 3 blocks, you're statistically ahead of letting any of those balls get hit past you.
Wow. That's a crazy stat.
Yeah. So it's interesting in the sense of that is where the game is evolving towards, is if somebody's going to hit the ball hard, you can't let it get past you, because the odds of getting a dig and then getting a set and transition that ball are so low that you're better just to try to go get the block. And I think that's where it's evolving. And when we get in the women's side, we'll talk about this, but I fully believe that's where Brandy's trying to take the game on the women's side as well, which I appreciate. And we can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into the women's side a little bit. Two teams that I've been very impressed with so far, and one team that I've been underwhelmed by. The teams that I've been impressed by so far: Sharif and Ahmed from Qatar. Obviously, they've lost in the finals both times to Mole and Sorum, so they're right out there. They're actually sitting on the outside of the Olympic race, but the way that they've been playing now, and especially since Mole and Sorum aren't going to be playing in this upcoming tournament, I think it's theirs to win. Another team, your favorite, everyone loves them, Karabula Rossi, lost in the quarterfinals to the aforementioned Sharif and Ahmed in the first tournament, and then I believe they got third. No, they got fourth, losing to Alisson and Navarro Fio in that bronze medal match the other day on Monday. But still, a team that has really been another team that's really been turning it on. A team that's really been underwhelming me is world champions Stoyanovsky and Krasilnikov.
Yeah, so Krasilnikov is my first pick in our fantasy draft. Huge fan of Krasilnikov. But he was banged up a little bit for a while. When they were doing the King of the Court, he wasn't playing. Stoyanovsky was playing with Brouwer, if I'm correct on that. So I know he took some time off. Oddly enough, I think as a team, they struggled with the win quite a bit. The setting from Stoyanovsky was not up to standard for him. I don't think he's a bad setter by any means. I just thought it wasn't great, and I don't know, maybe they just weren't jiving or whatever. But they were not good, and it was very looking un-Krasilnikov like. But I do feel that push comes to shove, when he wants to win, it might happen.
Yeah, and that's my feeling too, is that I always feel that maybe for Krasilnikov, when things aren't necessarily on the line, he's not necessarily 100% there. I think he's one of those players that needs that pressure and needs that big stage to really thrive. Because, I remember the first time that I really zoned in on him was the 2017 World Championships in Austria, and that's who Ben and Kame lost to in the quarterfinals. But he was an absolute baller that entire tournament. This is Krasilnikov. He was playing with Liam at the time. And I think Stoyanovsky's as well too. I mean, he's the biggest blocker on tour. He's 7'2". He's an absolute monster, right? So I think when you pair those two together, I think that they just tend to kind of mosey their way through tournaments, but once it gets to the big stage, like a World Championships, like the Olympics it's coming down later this year that they've already qualified for through that World Championship win, that's when I really think that we're going to see the best of that German pair, because so far they lost in round 2 to Sharif and Ahmed in the first tournament. The first tournament was definitely better, won their pool, lost in round 2. But then in tournament number 2, they lost their first match to a brand new Dutch team that I've never even heard of before, who made an insane run all the way to the quarters, and then lost in round 1 to Try and Trevor.
Yeah, so I mean, Try and Trevor's a tough matchup for anybody, right? I mean, they're a weird pool matchup. They're a really good team, just solid on all counts. But I really, when I watched them play both these tournaments, I really felt the we're just out here to knock the rust off vibe. Get our feet wet, see what some people have, hoping to see some people's kind of maybe new stuff that they came up with during COVID last year as other teams are prepping for the Olympics. And I don't know. I mean, maybe I think, it's easy to say there's 20 grand on a tournament online, but if you're supported by your federation financially, does it really matter?
No.
Right. And when the Russian Federation is gold medal or bust, there could be things there. We also don't know. This tournament's always weird. All sports this year are weird in the sense of we don't know who's had COVID and who hasn't. You know what I mean? In a lot of cases, we don't know who's had weird recoveries. We're hearing from NBA guys that now have puffers and things that have never had them before and things like that. So, there could be some situations there. But I just really got the vibe that they were like, let's just get our feet wet, knock some rust off. We'll play a couple tourneys in Cancun. We'll fly home. We'll get better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so too. I think from what I saw that they might be out of the next tournament.
They are. Not in the next tournament.
They are one of the withdrawn teams. I mean, Mollenstorm didn't even sign up for tournament number 3. They're out. So are Bruno and Evandro. We saw Bruno really struggle this week, and he's a guy who suffered from COVID as well. No Bruno and Evandro. No Perushik Schweiner, which sucks for my fantasy team. No Plavin Talks. No Emakora Prestaus, who made a run all the way to the bronze medal match in the first tournament. Didn't even get a qualifier in the second tournament. No Sider Waller for Austria, and they're kind of right in the thick of the Olympic race. So quite a few teams not participating in this third tournament, and it's interesting to me. Yeah,
I mean, I feel like a few of them might be I mean, I don't know. Sider Waller might have just felt like they didn't have it, or maybe the winds and conditions was tough for them. But some of these teams that are just on the outside, they might need fifths to improve their performance, right, or something like that. And if they're we don't have it right now, we're getting bounced in quarters, or we're not making qualifiers, we're gonna go fly home. We're gonna take a rest. We're gonna show up to Sochi ready to go, because I'm impressed that all the women's teams are still in, because man, it is a physical battle. And while this bubble was cool, how many of these teams have played this much volleyball in this short amount of time ever?
Yeah, I mean, even if that added stuff
crazy.
Like Clays and Sponsel or some of the American teams that have to play country quota today, then have to play qualifier, and then have to run through the tournament too, that's just gnarly. It's just straight up gnarly. I do wish that maybe they had just stuck to a traditional FIVB schedule. Not having finals on a Monday afternoon would have been great.
Yeah.
It really kind of shows to me how the FIVB, when it comes to beach volleyball, doesn't care about media. They don't care about TV rights. They don't care about getting in front of people, because otherwise, like, every other sport is dictated by when can we get on TV. And with this tournament, it's just kind of been like, yeah, we're going to do it, and it's going to be on YouTube. And I mean, hey, it's been great that it's been on YouTube, but maybe we should start investing a little bit more so that we don't, we can keep the one English guy, Louis Lett, who knows what he's talking about, but the other two who just kind of sit there and treat it like a soccer match and say something every 5 minutes, like, let's get rid of them, and let's get a real broadcast going on. But that's all I'm going to say about the media side of this Cancun bubble so far.
Yeah, I mean, I've been enjoying the fact it's on YouTube, but I totally agree. I mean, it's interesting in that sense. I mean, my wife's watched more volleyball this week than she probably ever has, other than when maybe I'm coaching or some of my teams are playing or I'm playing. But she's been enjoying it for the visuals and obviously the high level volleyball. But yeah, I mean, running stuff on a Monday is like, they're just like, well, whatever. We don't, like, they're just literally broadcasting that it doesn't really matter to them. Yeah. Eyeballs and things like that. So yeah, I mean, they're it is what it is. The visuals look good. I'm assuming that's the city of Cancun kicked a bunch of money in for this, for basically what's a 3-week advertising for Let's Go Here, because even kids in my class, I've been having volleyball on the TV basically on loop for the last 2 weeks, and they're all like, I'm telling my parents we're going to go to Cancun. So I feel like I'm really might kick some money their way in the next couple of years.
Well, kids of CMoore class, let me tell you about my experiences in Cancun. You can.
No.
Yeah, that was. Yeah,
you can go there and sit by the pool and have a wonderful time with your family.
Yeah, sure. With your family, absolutely. Now, jumping into some of our Canadians, we're going to talk about the men first, because we're talking about the men. It's been a mediocre outing at best so far for the men. Round 1 was pretty terrible, I won't lie. Neither of the teams, Platinka Nussbaum, Pedlo Schachter not getting out of qualifier, and then Saxton O'Gorman getting 1-2 barbecued in pool play.
Yeah, I mean, I think first term was tough. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to harp on this. I mean, this is what happens when you train indoors. I mean, this is what happens. You show up at an international tournament that's on the beach, and I know that Sam and Sam, spent a couple weeks in Florida, and Ben and Grant had spent a little bit, or Grant specifically had spent Ben and Grant had spent some time in Brazil. But 6 months of reps inside is not helpful.
Nope.
To anyone, and this is what happens. I mean, if the tournament had zero wind or very little wind, I feel like results, especially first week, might have been a little bit different. Mm-hmm. But in this situation, I mean, I don't know what else we could expect from the guys, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, just with the situation they were stuck in.
Yeah, absolutely. It has been difficult for them because they are, transitioning. They don't get to go to Tenerife like a bunch of the European teams do. And I mean, like that, we do have to say that with a caveat, because at the same time, we just spent all this time ogling over Molensorum, and they train indoors quite a bit of the time in Norway. But they do go down to Tenerife quite often, and that new kind of hotbed, which is almost better. I would say it's better on the men's side to go to Tenerife than it is to go to Manhattan Beach, Hermosa Beach, which is crazy that shift has been making. But how good the European teams and the young European teams, like the 19-year-old Swedes, has just been absolutely it has been phenomenal to watch. Tournament number 2 for the men's teams was definitely better. Sam and Sam make it through pool play. They do qualify, or make it through the qualifier. They do qualify. Unfortunately, go 0-2 in their pool. They had a really big one to potentially get out of it against Kratinger and Breer, and just couldn't pull it out.
Yeah, they had a really, really tight battle. I was actually impressed with Kratinger and Breer. I didn't know a ton about them going in. Obviously, I've heard of them. I've seen a couple games they played, but I was impressed with, I guess, how tight their game is. They're like not a lot of errors on their side, not a lot of like, oh my God, that's the craziest thing I've ever seen, but just steady, and they got the job done. I think Sam and Sam did a good job at knocking some rust off after tournament 1 and getting some tournament action, which we haven't, they haven't seen. That's the other thing too, right? They haven't seen for a while. And so that was good. And they did do better, but just not quite there, and a tough match. I think you could probably, people would look back at like a couple points right at the end saying it kind of got away from them, but I think they had their opportunities to do things. I just think that Kreidig and Beer just they didn't really screw up. They didn't really open the door and let Sam and Sam come through too much, right? They left a crack there, but they didn't give it away. And I think that was tough out in the end. But
yeah, I absolutely agree. It's been tough for them. I've noticed, especially it seems like Sam's blocking, like when Sam Pedlo's blocking is on, like what was against Italy in that last qualifier match, like they're doing well, but playing against Sharif and Ahmed, and both Ahmed and Crowding are very tall and could just kind of go OT over Pedlo.
Yeah, I mean, Ahmed just jumps unbelievably well. That guy amazes me. I think he's the fastest defender on tour, and I actually don't think it's close. Don't shoot on Ahmed. That is the thing I'll tell you. If you're scouting Cutter, do not shoot on Ahmed.
Sorry.
He will dig you.
Ahmed is the defender. Sharif is the blocker. You're right.
Yeah.
I did make that mistake, but I do have high hopes for them coming into tournament number 3. They are directly into the main draw due to all of those teams moving out. So they get another day of rest, and I'm hoping. I think that this one's going to be their tournament. Now, for Ben and Grant, they really took advantage of Bruno and Evandro coming in, not looking great, won that first match against the Brazilians, and then really put up a really good fight against Cantor and Loziak, winning that first set 21-19, and then a 15-8 third set, losing to one of the top teams on tour.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was extremely impressed with Ben and Grant in tournament 2. I thought the game came together. It's the best I've seen Ben play. Obviously I haven't seen him play in a year, but it's best I've seen him play in, I think, a couple years. I thought Grant was on and in control. They're a tough team to beat especially when Grant's siding out well, because most teams are still going at Grant. And they're a handful, and their game against Cantor Loziak showed it. I don't want to say, I don't want to be, mean to Bruno, but their ability to recognize early, whether they had a pre-scouting report or not, that Bruno didn't have it, and just attacked him at basically eliminated Evandro from the game, was incredibly impressive. So if they didn't have a pre-scouting report, like, props to them for just being like, nope, we're going to make Bruno beat us, and Bruno was unable to. And then really, really good win against Spain.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that round 1 matchup against Spain was some of the best volleyball I've seen Ben Saxon play in a long time. They lost the first set 21-15, and I was kind of like, oh, here we go. But they came back, bounced back, a 21-15 win for themselves. And then that third set was an absolute battle. And I haven't statted it, maybe you have, but Grant O'Gorman was almost perfect on side out. He was an absolute monster, and he was siding out at almost every single ball very, very efficiently.
Yeah, I mean, that they were so good against Spain, and I actually sent Grant a quick message after the game, and I just said, with a sky ball and a jumbo, there's no way you were going to lose that match. Like, there's no way Karma was going to let you, volleyball Karma was going to let it happen. But yeah, I totally agree. I don't remember many side outs that Grant missed, if any. He was on fire. Ben's setting was strong. And yeah, I mean, it was an interesting match because that match had a real head tailwind. There's a real good side, bad side.
Yeah,
there was a couple 6-1 sides and things you just don't see on the World Tour. But especially in set 2 and the final set, they were able to, especially when they needed to, was to steal enough points on the bad side that when they got the good side, they could put it away. Because they got to they ended up on the bad side. I think, up 13-12. I think. And I was like, oh, that's tough. Like, they've got to steal 2 to stay alive. Like, they've got to steal 2 to stay alive on the bad side. And they were able to do it. And so that's a testament to them, and some really good blocking by Ben, and some great side arc work from Grant. I was really impressed. I think if they could harness that, they'd be in good shape. And I felt like them moving on from there, they then played Carambula Rossi, and that sky ball in the dark. I mean, I don't.
How do you see that, right? Especially if he's serving it and we can't really tell because of the cameras, but I'm assuming he's serving it over the height of the lights. So you're waiting for it to come down into the lights, and then you have to react. And it's something gnarly. I was hoping we would see Grant pull out the sky ball a little bit too. Like I would have loved to see that. Like Karambula go off the sky ball, and then Grant pull off the sky ball. I thought that would have been a little bit fun, but we didn't see it as much.
Yeah, I feel like that. I was hoping for that too, knowing how much trouble that Ben and Grant were seeing with it. I actually think that I kind of was on the YouTube chat there, and I was kind of making jokes about Grant handling the sky ball no problem, because I actually think in the circumstances Grant passed the sky ball incredibly well. And then no jokes, Garrett May was like, well, actually they've had like 5 shanks. I'm like, Garrett, I'm watching the game too, man. I'm just like trying to pump up the crowd here, but anyways, so I think Ben struggled with it for sure. Grant, Grant's got a sky ball. He's been at Kits a lot. He's seen a ton of sky balls. Like in the daylight, Grant's going to pass a 2.5 on that sky ball all day. But with that serving it over the lights, in that amount of wind, I'm baffled that they passed the ones they passed. Like must have been a handful. But I do think Grant throwing up the sky ball back is interesting, because I believe that, like, I know that Grant's got a really good sky ball. It's accurate, it's high, it's got a lot of spin. But I do feel, I wonder, and I'll ask him about this, but I do wonder if it's like, he doesn't want to be like, oh, you're just skyballing because you're playing against, Karambula, like, kind of have that thing go. I don't think Grant really thinks about that stuff, but I'm going to ask him, because that's sometimes a complicated thought, right? You want to stick to your game. You don't want to get sucked into somebody else's. But I do think that this would be an underrated part of Grant's game if you wanted to bust it out more often, not just because I love sky balls, but because I actually think it's an effective weapon, especially if you're going to play under the lights.
Well, especially too, because I've talked to Grant about his sky ball, and I know that he has the ability, he's broken it down for me about how he has different ways to carve the ball depending on the different scenarios or what he wants it to do or something like that. Maybe he's just not as comfortable with it as his other serve. But yeah, I think maybe we're going to see that even more so in the third tournament. I hope so anyways. I really think that this third tournament is going to be a big opportunity for both Canadian teams to potentially gain some points here in that Olympic standing with all of those teams out now that they've got their outside legs underneath them a little bit more.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that there's a chance there. Like I said, we saw some glimpses of Sam and Sam. Of getting the feel again, and Ben and Grant played really well. So I do hope that there's a chance. It all depends on the draw with them, with how the draws have been shaken out. There's been some really tough pools that teams have got stuck in, and Cantor Loziak rolling into tournaments as like the 30 seed really puts a wrinkle on some things. And so it's been tough. So we'll really take a look at the draw, but I absolutely think that I would hope for a fifth or better. That's my projection for one of the teams.
All right, there we go. Now jumping into this next tournament, starting with the qualifier, there's going to be 2 Canadian men's teams in the qualifier. Sam and Sam have moved up to the main draw. Your good friend, and my good friend as well, too, the real deal, Jake McNeil, and his partner, Will Hoey, have made it into the bubble. They were there training throughout the last tournament. Unfortunately, though, as the FIVB has shown us with 3 back-to-back Canada matchups between Pavin and Melissa, and then Bansley and Brandy, it is going to be an all-Canadian first-round matchup. So good old Jake and Will get to go all the way down to the Cancun bubble, and the first game that they play, they get to play the guys that they've been playing all for however long, up at Downsview, Aaron Nussbaum and Mike Platanga. And Nussbaum and Platanga they've been close. They've both of their losses in the qualifier have gone to 3 in tight matches, and they just haven't been able to close it out. So maybe, hopefully, that playing against a team that they know well now, they're going to be able to rock it out, and a team that hasn't really played a match outside yet. No offense to Jake and Will. Of course, if they win, I will be equally as happy, but I do think that they are at a disadvantage this time around.
Yeah, I think so. I think so as well. I mean, Mike and Aaron have played, I guess, 4 matches now, right, in Cancun. So, they're more used to the wind, more used to the weather, more used to sand temperature, all that stuff. So they're going to have a little bit of advantage. Will and Jake would have had this week outside, and that's about it. So, it'll be interesting to see kind of what the wind does. I think that Mike and Aaron made some good adjustments between tournament 1 and tournament 2. Tournament 1, it was very indoor volleyball. They were digging, passing balls really high. Setting became a real handful for them. They seemed to kind of calm that down in tournament 2, and so yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you would know better than I do what the stats are on these two playing head to head at Downsview, but or head to head in Toronto, but
No clue.
yeah, no clue. Okay, so I mean, I just I would give edge to Mike and Aaron just based on the fact that they've got 4 matches outside in Cancun already, and Will and Jake don't. So, but I love me some Jake McNeil. He knows that. So if I would can't wait to see how many high fives Will gets if they do get a win or make the main draw. I think Will's hand might fall off.
Yeah, you're right. The winner of that one will be taking on Huber Dressler out of Austria in round 2 of the qualifier. I think one of the biggest matches.
Doable. That's doable.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree. Now, looking at let's see, Kame and Theo are going to be taking on match number 14. So Israel versus Metral Hausner, that team from Switzerland that took out Sam in the qualifier the first time around. So that should be a good one. Bormans de Groot are going to be taking on Cardenas Espinosa. So the team. The Dutch team that went all the way to the quarters is going to be taking on the Mexican team that took a set off of Mol and Sorum. They're going to be taking on Poland, Rudolf Slankovic, in round 2 as well. So the qualifier isn't as stacked as it has for the couple tournaments with all those teams bumping out, but it's still going to be a decent qualifier, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And the Swedish kids, Amen and Helvig, are still there, and there's some good teams, man. It's a testament to both draws. How deep it is when we're seeing some of these teams in qualifiers, and whether they're either in the qualifier because of country quota, but they would be otherwise, or whatever reason. But just the fact that you're getting teams on both sides coming out of qualifiers and making deep runs is showing you how deep world volleyball is getting in some non-traditional countries in that sense. Mexico having now 2-3 good teams, right? That you could always count on them to kind of have one good team, and now they've got 2 solid teams and 1 pretty good team. So they're coming along, and so it's interesting. It's going to be another good qualifier. I'll fire this thing up tomorrow. It'll be on TV in my classroom all day.
Man, you're lucky kids. I wish I was in your class back in the day. Maybe I would have done a little bit better in science. That is, one thing that I kind of wish maybe it's too much to ask from the FIVB, but is it too much to ask? Like, you've got so many quality teams who are going to be there the entirety. Can't we run a 2-star simultaneously? Maybe let's just throw a couple. Like, you've got all of that beach. Let's just throw all that out and throw another 2-star out there. You don't think so?
That's a really good idea.
Okay, yeah. See, I thought so.
You're an ideas guy. That's a great idea.
I am an ideas guy. I've always told Densmore that I should be the assistant to the assistant. Assistant to the ideas guy. Your good buddy Sandy, of course.
Yeah, Sandy is the chief ideas guy,
and I would never
in perpetuity.
And I would never want to take away that spot. His role in the Kits community and his role at the Vancouver Open in general, and your role as well. I've said this many times that the Vancouver Open is by far one of my favorite events in the world, and I've been to quite a few. But the two of you on that center court, just going back and forth, the dueling mics, the commentary, the crowd interactions, it really ties it all together. It really is that perfect bow that maybe your aunt or something gives you for Christmas. Sure, the present is great, the wrapping is fantastic, but that bow just really ties it all together, and that's what I think you two are at the Vancouver Open.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you saying that. It's a super fun event, and we've been bummed it hasn't been around for a couple of years, but we do promise we will be, when we are allowed, we will be back bigger, better than ever. we've got some wrinkles. No wholesale changes, but some wrinkles to throw in. Probably starting main draw matches on Friday night, which is going to be
Main
awesome.
draw on Friday night.
Yeah,
Okay,
get the beer garden hopping Friday night. City of Vancouver has now purchased wheelie bleachers that we're allowed to use, like on a semi truck that like fold out and make like grandstands. So it's going to be sweet. We're going to be back bigger and better than ever when we're allowed to come back, and it's going to be sweet. We got plans in the future, and we're going to keep it. We're going to keep it local. We're going to keep it Van Open, and we're going to get international flair. But we're gonna run it ourselves. That's our main plan.
You know what? As we're talking about Kids Beach right now, I got to give a shout out to a little bit of skyball action right there. Nice good shout out to Skyball Volleyball Apparel out of Kids Beach. A Kids Beach logo started that up. And if you guys are interested, you guys can get 15% off of your purchase when you use the code Volleyball Source at checkout.
Sweet. I didn't even know that. I didn't even know I could get fit. I'm gonna get 15% off.
Do it
Now. I've got 2 skyball things now. I got a hat and I got a toque. Both are great quality. They look cool. I love them. Great guy, Mike Hughes, who started that. His 2 young kids will be volleyball forces in the future. I promise. Yeah. They're awesome.
It is funny because the first time I met Mike Hughes was during the skyball competition that you guys have at the Vancouver Open every year. His kids were running around. Sandy introducing me, and that was back in 2017, I think it was. And so he started running it. I was like, "Yo, I love this." He was like, "Here's some stuff. Here's a promo code if you want to give some people." So yeah, guys, go use that promo code 15% on if you got no tax. So yeah, it's pretty fantastic.
Really a no-brainer. Local company, shop smart, shop local.
Absolutely.
Support the community. It's a great idea.
Support the
Plus, it looks cool.
Yeah, it does. It looks cool. It's my favorite hat, and I wear it all the time, especially because I've got this like mane going on. I've got the longest hair.
It's looking good.
I'm almost like CMoore loves out there, like the Lion King. It's looking good. Anything else to mention on the men's side of stuff? On the men's side of things?
No, I think I kind of tackled it all. I mean, I could talk volleyball for 14 hours, but nobody wants to see that. So we can move on.
Yeah, we can't move on. Let's move on to the women's side of things, where our Canadian women have been doing much better. Mel and Sarah going all the way to the finals in the first tournament, falling for 9th in the last tournament. A little bit of a tough draw for them. For Brandy and Heather, I found that they have had maybe the toughest draw of anyone so far. Like, they've lost 4 matches so far in the 2 tournaments. The matches they've lost to were Alex and April in pool play in the first tournament, Mel and Sarah twice to end their tournament in tournament 1 and in pool play in tournament number 2, and then another team that's already qualified for the Olympics, Taliqua Clancy and Maria Faye Artacho del Solar. So they have been going on so hard. Like, they've had one of the toughest schedules by far. And they've beaten teams like Carrie Walsh Jennings. They've beaten Lara Ludwig along the way. Like, they've beaten good teams and just fallen to some of the top teams in the world.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is going to sound like, Canadian bias, but they're easily watching them play just on ability and pushing those top teams, how they've pushed them. They're a top 5 team. I'm very confident saying that, like, no problem. They just got drawed. They got drawed twice hard.
Yeah, and
hard.
I got a lot of flack from my American and English friend when we did the preview show by saying that Brandy and Heather would be a dark horse for these tournaments. We haven't really seen that come to fruition yet. As we just said, they've had some tough matchups, but I wouldn't be surprised if they made a run at the Olympics. They're that type of team. Brandy is the best blocker in the world. Heather is a multiple-time best defender in the world. And now that they've kind of been getting that under their belt a little bit more, I think they're going to be ready to run.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the wind has not been great. I mean, we know for them, not on the ball control side, just in the sense of, Heather doesn't have the biggest hitting window, and so Brandy, I think, was having a hard time putting her in the slot
And
slot sometimes.
and on the other side of it, Brandy has such a huge hitting window that you need to jack that ball up for her. You can't run her as fast. Like she's almost like Shawan Vernon Evans on the indoor side in that sense, where that she needs a higher looping ball to be able to do all the cuts that she needs to do, and especially that two ball offense that they employ. It's one that when Heather is passing it that first touch really well, nice and high, looping tight to the net, then Brandy has almost the entire court to swing at. But when it's that windy and it's that more difficult, like I think those are tough conditions for that team to play in.
Yeah, and I think depending on what happens with the wind, obviously this week, but when they head to Sochi and they head to Stade and they head to Tokyo, I mean, they're not going to be in conditions this windy. None of those places are right on the water like they are, and if they are, they'll have barricades or things up, or in the Tokyo's case, they'll be in a stadium. So they're not going to see that kind of wind. So I totally agree. I think they're a real dark horse, and kind of jumping on the thing from Anders Mole from before about Brandy is Brandy. So when people say Brandy's the best blocker in the world, I think one, I agree, and two, I'm not sure that people necessarily understand why. Like she gets a lot of blocks, but she gets a lot of blocks because she's kind of doing the same thing Honor Mole's doing. She's trying to block every ball. And that sounds really weird to say. It sounds like, well, obviously blockers should try to do that, but she is so explosive and so dynamic that she is making adjustments in air. She has really good eye work, like really, really good eye work up there. She's making adjustment in the air and disrupting people. And that's something that I think people forget about blocking. Blocking is not, just about taking space, and it's not just about, I got to block line, I'm going to go block line. Blocking is about making the other team do something they don't want to do. And she does such a good job at that. And then with how good of a defender Heather is, I mean, yeah, I think there's a lot of scenarios where they're easily in a top 5 scenario, and if they don't get stuck with a horrible draw, I mean, I think we could see it in hub number 3, but if not, we'll see it in I'm assuming they're going to go, but we'll see it in Sochi and Stade for sure. The other thing that's I think hurting them in the wind a little bit too is Sarah and Mel do the same thing, but basically anytime Brandy's blocking on the right side, they're trying to bait people into cross shots essentially, and then they get dug, and then now it's left shoulder inside the court, and it's two ball city, and in this wind it just doesn't allow for the higher dig. It's a little harder to control that ball, and it really took a big chunk out of their offense. When I watched them in Vegas in 2018, let's call it, does that sound right? October 2018.
Yep, that's exactly right.
I mean, I made a joke to Leonard that I thought they were like 1,000 for 1,000 on that play. Like it was disgusting. Like not a single team had like made a dig on that play once in the whole tournament. I watched every one of their matches, and anytime the ball got hit crossed and Heather put it up somewhere for Brandy to go into, it was like 2 steps off the net, 3 quick short steps, and then she's just up there so high with all 4 corners available, and she could chip it, hit it, whatever. The other team is not ready. They're trying to figure out where they're going, and it was like if basically if she didn't hit it out of bounds, it was a point. Like no one touched it. It was incredibly impressive, and I think the wind takes a lot of that away, which is tough.
I've talked about it before, but Brandy has such an unorthodox swing. And it's definitely not textbook by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, I still remember interviewing Brandy after I think they had just lost at the World Tour Finals in 2016, when that first tournament that she had played with Heather, right after Heather and Sarah had broken up. And literally, like, Brandy and I are in the middle of an interview, and some dude comes up and he goes, "Hey, you're pretty good, but you really need to fix your arm swing. You're going to be way better with a different arm swing." And like, we're in the middle of an interview, and Brandy's just like, "Okay, whatever, dude, like, sure." And I don't think she needs to fix that arm swing. I think that because it's so unorthodox, and the way that like it hinges, that it just opens up shots for her and allows her to hit balls that no one else in the world can. And I mean, as we said, Heather is so good and has such good ball control that she just gets the ball, puts it up there, and Brandy is able to swing away. It's really impressive, and I really do think that that's a team to watch out for, and that's a team that are definitely medal threats going into Tokyo. I mean, they were basically the number 1 team in the world through that 2018 run. I think they won 8 medals or something like that in 2018. So that's a team that knows how to win, has won, and can definitely get to the podium, even though we haven't seen it recently.
Yeah, totally agree. It's Heather is Heather, and Heather's so good, and she's been so good for so long, and I don't actually really see any decline coming from Heather anytime soon, and I just feel that Brandy is just like getting better, like she's on a rocket ship, and so I think that the potential is there for sure, for them to just keep improving, and I totally agree about Brandy's arm swing. I mean, it's like we try to teach kids the perfect arm swing, but sometimes there's an arm swing that works, and I agree with you. If you tore down her mechanics, could you make it so she hits the ball like 5 kilometers an hour higher? Yeah, sure, maybe, but then you might lose a whole bunch of shots she can create because of that, and it's also really hard to read. I've tried to watch on film and try to figure out where she's hitting balls, and I don't know. And I'm like pausing it, like trying to figure it out, and she doesn't know, and well, she knows, but it's so hard to read. So I think that's like a big thing, and one of the other things that I talked to Leonard about when we were in Vegas was I actually asked him if it was part of their game plan to basically serve the other team's left side, because then Brandy's on the right side of the court. And he's like, well, I haven't really thought about that, but I think that's a real weapon, and it'd be interesting to know if you actually sat down and statted it. At what point does the left side, or how much better does the left side attacker have to be to not serve them? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because on that side of the court, you have that 2-ball option, and then the other team, the question is should I just run a backside every time then to take Brandy's left shoulder out of the game?
I mean,
maybe I shouldn't have said that out loud. Can we delete that so World Tour teams don't see that? Because that's what I would do. I wouldn't let Brandy or Sarah ever block on the right side of the court.
I mean, I do think
personally,
I do think that World Tour teams are doing their own film, and I do think you're a smart guy, but I don't necessarily think that people doing film for a living are not picking up on this, and I don't think they're also paying attention to the show either.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, honestly, I will say, maybe not the show, but you'd be surprised at how many people just look at volleyball the same way it's been looked at, because that's the way we've looked at it for a long time.
Well, I think that's why we're seeing such a transition on the men's side, where like the North Americans and the Brazilians aren't as dominant, because Europe is just taking it to a whole another level. And I mean, they've got the funding, and they've got all of these different things, but especially on the men's side, it's another level. On the women's side, the NCAA is really bolstering North American teams, and totally. I think that's why it's going to continue it. But yeah, it's very interesting to watch the progression of the sport as it's getting bigger, faster, stronger. It's a lot of fun to watch. Moving on to Sarah and Mel. They go all the way to the finals in tournament number 1, lose to Brazil, Talita and Tayana Lima, and then a 9th in the last tournament. I'm not going to lie. I'm kind of okay with these results. I'm okay with them struggling a little bit right now. I know that they probably aren't, and because they're competitors and, they want to win. But I think that the women's side is way more open than the men's side. I can probably think of 8 or 9 teams who are legitimate medal threats heading into Tokyo. But I also think that, they are a team that has already qualified, and they kind of know who they are, and it's about fine-tuning. So right now, to me, if they're not having that success, and realistically losing to Borgo Suda, like Borgo Suda is a team that has, like, they were on a mission. They played a fantastic game against Mel and Sarah, and I think that's what I would boil down to it. But for me, it just shows that they're still working on things, and they're looking to peak come August.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it kind of goes back to the Krasilnikov conversation, other than I don't think Sarah and Mel are disinterested at all. I think it's just, they're out there, first tournament in a long time. Let's knock some rust off. Let's kind of feel things out. And I actually agree with you. I do feel that this actually might be best results. I think that especially how they lost that match, actually both those matches, the ones to knock them out of the tournaments, the gold medal match and then the 9th place match. I think how they lost them is actually really good for them going forward, especially the Borger Sude match. That was, one of the first times that we've seen a team relentlessly go at Sarah. And knowing what type of competitor and person Sarah is, like work ethic wise, I think that is actually going to do that team give them an incredible boost coming into Tokyo, because she's not going to be stoked at the passing performance, in that moment, and I know the work that they're going to put in leading up to Tokyo is going to be huge for them. And if we can get teams to think that serving Sarah is the way,
go for it.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Let's serve Sarah, and let's let the best female setter in the world dish butter.
Yeah, just straight nectar, because
yeah,
that's what's eventually gonna happen. And I also don't mind teams thinking that they can beat Mel and Sarah, because I think that when it comes down to it, Mel and Sarah can go to that next level. Like, I don't think we're seeing 100% from them. I think it's actually the same thing with Heather and Brandy, and that they're still going to be working through some things. Especially got that crew of Brazilian coaches who used to coach Agatha and Barbara, right? So I really think that both of the Canadian female teams are building up to something.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I actually think that Sarah and Mel, I talked about the wind being a hand. Like, it's not like they're bad in the wind. It's just that it makes the 2-ball game harder. It makes it harder on bump setters, which both Sarah and Brandy are. And so moving to more traditional FIVB locales with lesser wind or inside stadiums, they are going to absolutely be a handful come Tokyo. So
yeah,
I'm pretty excited.
I definitely agree. A few teams that have popped out. Well, one team especially that's popped out for me, Makrozuva Kolomina out of Russia, going all the way to the finals, beating Alex and April in the semis. Alex and April, of course, getting bronze. What did they get in the first tournament? Let me go back and check here. Alex and April. Oh, they lost. They got a ninth. They lost to Clancy Artacho del Soler, who beat them late afterwards. That result flipped for tournament number 2. But those are two teams that I think obviously have the potential to win. I don't think you can ever discount April Ross at any point.
No.
But you have some interesting notes on Agatha and Duda.
Yeah, I've obviously watched Agatha and Duda play before. I am in complete awe at how hard other international teams are working to not let Duda touch the ball. They would rather hit it out of bounds or get blocked than Duda make a dig. Duda in transition, or if any team accidentally serves her, is basically automatic. As dominant a volleyball player as I've seen either gender ever. It's just like, oh, made a dig, like, okay, just chalk the point up. Basically, it's impressive, and when they've lost, it's because teams have found a way to not let her play volleyball, just kind of the same way that Ben and Grant, kept Evandro out of the game completely. And it's very interesting, and that's actually really hard to do with a defender. Usually you can keep a blocker out of the game, you don't serve them, and you work around them and you make the defender beat you. But when you have a defender that's dominant offensively, it's mind blowing. And if Agatha can just be steady, they got to be considered, they're right up there. Obviously they're ranked really high as well, but like they're right up there with like teams that, none of us would be shocked if they win the gold medal.
Absolutely not. We are talking about the top female Brazilian team, right? So like it's like Canada in hockey. You always expect them to be in the medal round, or Lewis Hamilton in F1.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's easy to say, but it's just crazy to me. Watching teams play them, just other Brazilian teams, everybody just like, nope, like Duda, you don't get to play volleyball. Like they are just trying to like minimize her contacts to the nth degree, to the point of like, honestly, sometimes putting themselves at a disadvantage. like, oh, that line over is open. I'm not going to hit it because she still might dig me. Right. It's an interesting, it was kind of an interesting thing. And obviously I'm not in their heads and I don't know, but that's what it looked like from afar. And yeah, this was the first time that I've, really watched, due to that closely and incredibly impressed. And, then you remember she's, early 20s, 22, 23. Like you're like, oh, okay.
One team I haven't been so impressed by as the other Brazilian team is Rebecca and Anna Patricia. They just, they seem lazy out there. Like they seems like points come easy to them and they're not working as hard as other teams. Maybe that's just my bias, but just haven't been that impressed by them so far.
Yeah, I wonder how much the wind is impacting them as well. It shouldn't too much. They're playing in Brazil all the time, but it might bring them back down to earth a little bit. But I kind of look at them as they'll show up when it matters as well. But I agree. I think that they do have a tendency to idle through games and sometimes get snuck up on. They're like, oh, we're going to beat this team. We're ranked 15 spots higher, and then they kind of get snuck up on. But they're also young and they'll learn and they're Brazil too. I mean, they're obviously not bad. So, but I agree. I think they were a little out of it this tournament.
Yeah. I definitely agree. I mean, we did see Anna Patricia roll her ankle in tournament number 1, so maybe that has played a factor into it. But she did get up from that hit and kind of move on. So we're not entirely sure. We'll keep on looking. The American race has been interesting to watch, especially because Clays and Sponsel have had to play in the qualifier. But I really do think that Brooke Sweat and Carrie Walsh Jennings are going to take that number 2 spot there for the United States.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Carrie Walsh would just like somehow like manifest it at the end or something. You know what I mean? Like, if we go in, if we end up in Stade and they need a third, like you can basically pencil them in for a third. Like I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm giving her too much credit on the hype of Carrie Walsh, but she's been there before. She's such a good player. She's she's so calm and in control. And I know a lot of people kind of were like, when she partnered up with Brooke Sweat, but they both know each other and Brooke doesn't make a lot of mistakes. And that's a perfect partner for Carrie because Carrie's going to get her blocks and she's going to get her kills and she's going to get her aces. And so if the other person she's playing with can just, be there and be steady, they're in real good shape.
Now, going back to right after Carrie and April Ross split up, Carrie had asked Sarah Hughes to partner, and Sarah Hughes turned her down. Do you think she's regretting that a little bit? Because Sarah Hughes and Summer Ross, they did have that great run in the World Championships back in 2019. However, they haven't even been able to make it out of the country quota yet so far here in Brazil.
I 100% think she's regretting that. I mean, I don't know. I haven't talked to her. Maybe there's like a real personality conflict there. I don't really see it. They both seem like good people, but I don't really know them that well. So, but I guess the question would be like, are you turning down? Like, it feels like I want to take another shot at the next Olympics. Like, if you're some young American defender, are you turning that down? Probably not, right?
If you're Phil, if Phil's asking you, but the reality is I think Phil is past that point. I think Phil is already at that point where he's like, I'm playing with my boy, I'm playing with Nick Lucena, and that's kind of going to be all she wrote. Like, do I think that we're going to see Phil and Nick on the FIVB tour past past Tokyo? I would doubt it.
I would doubt it too.
Like,
but I was using that as kind of an example, right? It's just like, I mean, I don't know how you could have watched, Carrie Walsh after her and April split up and said like, she's cooked or something. I mean, she did have that shoulder issue. She's had a couple of, but I don't know how you could have watched her play and been like, yeah, she's done. But you never know. There could have been like training things in there and that. But I mean, Sarah Hughes would probably be a little bit more erratic than Brooke, just a little bit younger, a little less experienced. But I see that being a strong team as well, and it'd probably be Hughes and Carrie going to Tokyo.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I love the way that Sarah Hughes plays the game, and I just don't find that Summer Ross and her are a good fit. Hughes plays so fast, she's so physical, like she bounces balls, and Summer Ross just kind of goes through the motions. Like, she never really develops the player to be like, like I remember back when she was winning junior world championships back in like 2010, 2009, and everyone was like, she's the next Carrie Walsh, and she's just never really turned out to be that athlete.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes hard. I mean, I think that's another thing that's so impressive to me about Duda is like she won like 2 U19 worlds in a row and then 3 U21 worlds and a junior Olympics. Like, like Duda is like the Connor McDavid, LeBron James, the Christine Sinclair of like being like, this person is amazing. And then they're amazing. Not like, they were really good when they were young and then they kind of plateaued. Mm-hmm. They've always been amazing.
What's been really interesting too is that two of those times when she won U19s is that she played against Makrogozuva and Kolomina in the finals.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, so that's like that match, that showdown that we saw in the finals on Monday has kind of been perpetually going on, just kind of years and years and years.
That's super cool. Didn't know that.
Kind of the same way that Mel and Betchart have been going toe to toe, because Betchart and Joanna Heidrich actually won U21s in Halifax way back in the day, when Mel and what's her face? Why can't I remember her name? Victoria Altamar. We're playing again way back in the day, before the Pischke days. So it's kind of interesting how those matchups in like junior days have perpetually just kind of continued on to the FIVB World Tour.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the evolution of beach volleyball as it goes. It's no longer, like the offshoot of indoor volleyball, and we're not, you're not seeing these great indoor, or like not necessarily great, good indoor players, playing at the junior worlds that then go play 5 years of pro, 10 years of pro, and then they're done. Like if you think in the Canada days, like a Nick Del Bianco, like unbelievable beach player, but like indoor guy. Right. And so, and you're kind of now you're looking back, you're like, oh, like Amon Helvig, like doing damage at the youth worlds and then showing up on the world tour. And you're starting to see this be a thing. It's no longer, let's just go to the beach worlds for fun in the summer, and then we'll go back to playing NCAA pro, university indoor, whatever. It's now like a thing. So I think we're going to see that more and more, which is actually really cool. And I would hope that the FIVB starts, finding a way to live stream more of the junior stuff as well. Because
it has been live streamed in the past, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, it's just like, I guess, harder to find.
Yeah, I mean, it's the FIVB, so things are always harder to find, right? Like,
right, yeah.
But I'm pretty sure, like, I remember watching the McNamara's on YouTube and stuff like that. And I mean, back in the day when Mel and stuff were juniors, which is like, it's going back a little bit now. I don't really think it was streaming was as big as a thing back then.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be like a cool. I feel like that'd be a cool thing FIB could do as well, is like when they have some of these, tournaments in places where they have unlimited space, unlimited courts, you run your 4-star in Sochi and you run your U19 worlds adjacent. Yep. Right before, right after, during, like whenever you want to do it. I know that when the AVP does US Nationals at Hermosa, we've had a bunch of Sideout teams go down there before, and it's awesome because it's like, the youth tournament is the 3 days before the AVP. So all the physio, all the massage, all the signage, center court, grandstands, it's all up. And they've got DJs, and it's awesome. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I feel like FIB could do that, but I don't know. I don't know if there's an ideas guy. I don't know if there's an ideas guy for the FIVB if they don't have that position.
No, trust me, there is not. There is just a bunch of old whites sitting around a table being like, what can we copy of what soccer does? More English people, please. Sorry, that Louis, I love you. Just, yeah. But, interesting enough, you mentioned the ideas guy. How about this? Throwing an idea about there. What if, because usually on the Sunday of the Vancouver Open, there's a juniors tournament going on at the same time. What happens if the juniors finals was played on that center court? Maybe separates the semis from the finals. You give the main teams a bit of a breather, and we let the men's and the girls and the boys finals play on that center court. What do you think about that?
We've done that before.
Oh, we have, just not when I'm there, obviously.
Yeah, just not when you're there. So we've done it before. Couple hiccups.
Okay. I guess timing would be difficult.
Yeah, sometimes timing is tough. The other hiccup we have is having kids play in front of a midday beer garden.
Yeah, I forgot about that part.
Uh,
I forgot about
not
that
the
part.
best.
Yeah, you're right.
Not the
Because
best.
if you've ever played the Vancouver Open before, you'll know how unforgiving it is, right?
Yeah.
And there might be a few stooges in the beer garden who have been there since first thing Sunday morning, who might not know that there's a line.
Yeah.
And you know what? I do retract that.
Yeah, and
I
you're
do
out there,
retract
you're
that.
feeling good, you're chirping, we're loving it, we're helping, it's all great, and then if maybe you don't know volleyball, maybe you do, some of the kids are really good. So it's just another volleyball game in front of you. And yeah.
Or
So
maybe you've got a couple of side out kids on one side and you've got non side out kids on the other side, and the two announcers are a little bit biased too.
we try never to do that because it's usually two side out teams anyways. So, but whatever.
This is true. You guys do usually give tournament updates of how well your teams are doing.
Yeah. Yeah, well, our one team was a four-time champion. They won U14, U14, U16, U16, four teams, 4 years in a row.
Wow,
They're pretty good.
That's pretty impressive. As I said before, I do think that you guys are the best beach volleyball club in Canada. And that's not pandering because you're here on the show. I've told you that in person as well. Speaking of, do you have anything else to mention? Cancun bubble, any of that thing, or can we touch NCAA beach real quick before we head out?
Yeah, let's touch into the beach real quick. Let's do that.
So, first and foremost, any of your side out girls in the finals. Before we touch about how the NCAA is short-handing the NCAA beach volleyball finals with no spectators, less amount of teams, no media allowed. When we just had the NCAA women's finals where there was fans in the stands, and we're talking about an outdoor venue as well. So these rules that they're putting in place just don't make sense if you're talking about a concern for COVID, considering that they are outside and that they've played indoor matches, inside. And it's clearly that they just can't be bothered to service, the fastest growing sport in NCAA history.
Yeah, they definitely threw it together off the side of someone's desk, in my opinion. So yeah, that's just what I'm thinking on that. Basically, big team still in the hunt, or big people for us is ex-Sideout alumni and Sideout coach extraordinaire Darby Dunn, and LMU is still in the hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Darby this year has been playing she played last year on the ones and twos. This year she's on the fours they kind of put her on there with a young defender. So Darby's playing a bit of a mentor role this year. The girl she's playing with is electric, but a little bit random, as you are when you're 18 or 19 playing beach volleyball. And so they've got a shot. Last I checked, they were ranked 5th. I know the tournament is in Alabama, so it's a bit of a cross-country travel for the California teams that are going to be the favorites. USC, UCLA, probably the favorites once again. Mm-hmm. A couple strong Florida teams as well. But I wouldn't be surprised if a California team took it down again. They when you're in the area with all the best teams and you have a war every week, it's pretty easy to get there and do well. You're not shocked by anybody's skills or anything like that. They haven't launched the draw yet, so I can't handicap that at all.
Yeah,
but
May 2nd is the show for determining just the most recent AVCA coaches poll that came out today. USC at number 1, UCLA at number 2, Florida State at 3, LSU at 4, Loyola Marymount at 5, Cal Poly at 6, TCU at 7, Arizona at 8, Stanford at 9, Grand Canyon at 10, and then we're gonna add this in Cal at number 11 because we all know your girl Kat is at Cal.
Yeah, so Kat's at Cal. Unfortunately, Kat this year, she because of indoor season straddled into beach season this year. Kat has been training with the beach team, but they didn't want to burn any of her eligibility. But basically, Kat showed up with the beach team, paired up with a non-traveling girl who's like in the 7s or 8s category for Cal, and just was waxing their 2s and 3s at practice. So she's pretty good at beach volleyball. So they were debating burning a year of her eligibility to try to win the last 2 matches, because they thought that might have get him into the main draw, but they, thought better and didn't do that. I'm not, to be honest, in the long run, we might look back on this and say it doesn't really matter, because the odds of Kat adding the 5th year on the end versus either playing professionally indoor or going out on the world tour is probably not
Definitely not
high.
out of the question.
Odds are not high for her staying a 5th year. So she had a great indoor season at Cal. Started every game as a freshman, led them in swings and kills.
Casual.
And casual Pac-12, leading a team as a freshman.
She's truly going to be that. I have to think back to like the last person I remember like that is like Sophie Bukovic and Taylor Pischke, who are equally as good on the indoor and beach side. But neither of them were able to do it at the NCAA level. I mean, if you've listened to my Garth Pischke podcast, you'll learn that Taylor went down to UCSB. They thought that was kind of right at the beginning of beach volleyball. Back then, it was actually sand, which they've made that official switch, which I like.
Yes.
And UCSB thought that they were going to have a beach team and decided to cut it. And so Taylor kind of went back and played at the University of Manitoba. I mean, it worked out. She's still in the national team, won a national championship with them. So, hey, but Cal has I don't think we've ever had a Canadian person play both so successfully. And that's why I'm very excited to see what's in the future for Kat Pantovic.
Yeah. I mean, I've obviously got a lot of hopes for her. She's such a hard worker, always wants to do so well, and huge pull for them. I mean, when she was going through the recruiting process, kind of UCLA only wanted her for indoor. USC was just sniffing around, but beach only. The only kind of 2 offers she got for both was LMU and Cal was Pac-12, and also had more options for her for school, bigger school.
Prestigious school.
Yeah, prestigious school, right? So, and that's important for her. She's also an awesome student. So I'm excited for what's to come in NCAA beach volleyball. Our other set of twins Sato has, the Brown twins, Morgan and Olivia. They're at Erskine College, which is a D3 school in South Carolina, and they play on the ones down there as sophomores.
Wow!
And they got a win against a D1 school this year. So they beat another set of ones, so that's pretty good. Let's go. And then Sarah Osteech is playing for Concordia in California, and she was on the 2s or 3s this year, and they were kind of a middle of the pack team, but she had a couple big wins as well. And then Julia Solar, another Sideout player, was on Tulane this year. Didn't quite crack the traveling squad though. She was kind of on the 6s all year, but lots of good things to come from all them as well. And we'll see. Unfortunately, with COVID, I felt like we were going to have a real shot to have another 3, 4, 5 girls go to NCAA for beach, because we have a really strong 18U class at Sideout, but they're all going to play indoor in Canada, which is also fine.
Which is also fun. We are not discriminating between you.
Not discriminating.
Not our position to do so. Actually, one athlete, Ontario athlete that I have been keeping my eye on, Jamie Santer at Hawaii. She's a freshman. She's a girl that I coached in like house leagues many years ago, and she was just too good to play against the other kids. So I spent most of the house league sessions playing one-on-one against her, because at like 12 years old she was like maybe not, I think she was a little bit older, like 13, 14, but she was just way above any of the other kids. And I remember now she was like a provincial level soccer player, and I was begging her to come play for my team, and she ended up not following soccer, but I lost touch of her, or randomly saw her just dominating at Hawaii. So she's going to be another name to watch out for on the beach side. Jamie Santer. She's going to be a big one for sure, I think.
Awesome. That's great.
Now, CMoore, I think we're wrapping up here. I do want to ask one more question of you. I do believe you told me a story a few years ago about how a certain athlete named Kira Van Ryk asked to play for you in 18U and you told her no and that she should just focus on herself for a year. Is this true?
So Kira, no, it wasn't. It wasn't. How do I say this? It didn't quite shake down like that. So I was coaching the year younger than Kira, and basically how the story goes, it was, what do you have left to prove? Like, why are you playing club volleyball? Like, what is the point? And she didn't, and it was great because. Kind of the conversation, because with Dad, with Henrik, and with Kira, and it was basically along the lines of like, what do you got left? She'd probably already made up her mind. Like, I was just involved in a general conversation, but it was basically along the lines of like, you might never get another break, right? Like, when else are you going to be able to take 3 months off volleyball that doesn't matter?
Straight up though, you're very much right. So basically what you're saying here is that Kira's unbelievable year this year in Poland is because you told her to take a break a few years ago.
Yeah.
That's
I was the sole controller of that. I mean, I could talk a lot with Kira. Like, she's great. And I mean, I love that she made that decision. I mean, she didn't let people really get in her head. Like I said, I'm sure she'd already made that decision before we were talking about it or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, it was the right move. I mean, what was she going to do? What was she going to do? Go play club and do whatever? I said the same thing about Eric Lepke last year playing for Trinity. Like, what are you doing, man? Like,
yeah,
like, what are you doing out there? Like, you're just clowning guys. Like, go play pro. Like, go make some money. And you know, Eric had degree situations to look at and things like that. And you know, I respect everybody's choice, but you know, there's only so many jumps left in those knees, and let's not waste them against inferior competition. And now Kira Van Rijk is shredding. I don't know, arguably the best women's league in the world, probably the best women's league in the world.
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't like you. I would go Italy, Turkey, Russia, Poland. But still, like,
top 5 women's league in the world.
You know, like, she is hands down one of the best female prospects in the world right now. And yeah, so I just kind of wanted to clear that up because I do remember you telling me that. And I mean,
for the record, if I would have been coaching 18U and she was like, CMoore, I'm coming to play for you, I still would have told her no.
Because
what's the point?
I do remember you telling me that, and you know what? I think that's I think that's why I got love for you, because you do the right thing, man. You do the right thing.
It's the same thing at Sideout. We have a Sideout rule that if you win a tournament at an age group, you are banned from that age group.
Damn.
Banned. Ban hammer. You show up Sand Series #1 in Vancouver, you win 16U, boom, go play 18U.
Boom.
Doesn't do you any good to wax people.
Dude,
nobody gets better.
This is why you guys are the best. This is why you just listed off so many of your athletes that are playing down in the NCAA. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, man. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on and chatting some volleyball with me. It's date night with my girlfriend, and she's pitter-pattering behind me and getting ready. So we're going to pour ourselves some wine and make ourselves some dinner and stuff like that. But, dude, really appreciate you coming on here.
Oh, anytime.
And chatting some volleyball. I do think that we're going to have to do this some more. I would like to get it to be a bit of a round table. I did try to get Jonathan McAdam from our fantasy league in. He's been killing it on our Discord chat as well too, guys. Also, if you're listening to this, come join the Volleyball Source Discord chat. It is going to be down in the show notes. We've got coming up to like 150 people on the Discord, and we've got plenty of Canadians, we've got Americans, we've got people from literally around the world. I think I don't think we have anyone from Africa yet, but we have people in Asia, we have people all across Europe, in South America, in the States, and all over the place. So come join our Discord. CMoore, are you on the Discord yet? Or are you not a Discord? You're a little too old for Discord. He doesn't even know
I do. Wait. I do know what Discord is because my students talk about it all the time. But I do not have the Discord. I don't have the thing in that. I'm sure I could figure it out. You just click around.
Yeah, it's just
perfect.
It's just an app. It's basically.
I know what an app is.
Yeah, for sure. It's just like a chatting app. You know, it's like chat boards and stuff like that. So yeah, come hang out on the Discord. Indoor volleyball, beach volleyball, men's and women's. We cover it all. we cover it. We chat about it.
I'd come on there and be like, what indoor? Like, what are you guys talking about? I don't know anything about these things. You guys know so much about like crazy indoor leagues. You guys probably talk about like fourth division in Italy and stuff like that.
Yeah, sometimes like when we've got dudes who are updating on like France Pro B and stuff like that. It's great. It's
I
turning
love
into,
it.
it's
I
turning into a
love
really
it.
great community. So if you guys are paying are listening, come join Discord and yeah, drop us a line if you want to hear us talk about anything. If you have any questions, let us know in the comments or on Instagram. CMoore, once again, thanks so much, dude. So much fun chatting with you, and we'll have to do it again soon.
See you later. Awesome.
Peace out, guys. Have a great one.